It's 1:45, which means that we're starting our next session called Be Inspired by the Story of Care Leavers. So we're joined by Tom and Rosie. Tom was a foster child with Banya, and he's over 18 now, and he works with Banya on our social media and marketing team. And Rosie is in the Birmingham area, and she's also part of Banya's staff, but she also has her own story because she was a foster child herself. So we're going to give them the floor and listen to their amazing and very inspiring story. Welcome, Tom and Rosie, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Rosie. You're muted, Rosie. Oh.
Hi,
hello, Rosie.
Everyone. You're right.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Rosie. So we're both care leavers, aren't we?
We are. Yeah. It's actually quite nice to get to know you a bit better today. It's really nice.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, I've heard your story a few times, but I also love hearing it because
I've never heard yours.
of the amazing outcome that it has.
Yeah. So, I've never heard yours, so I'm looking forward to hearing yours.
Okay. Would you like me to tell mine first, or would you like to tell yours first?
You can kick it off. That's fine.
Okay. Well, I came into foster care when I was 7 years old. I didn't become Banya's part of Banya's children till I was 9 years old. I came into care because both of my parents were alcoholics, and there was also domestic violence. My dad was domestically violent against my mum, and I was witness to this until I was 7 years old. And then from there, I remember several times the police coming around the house. I remember seeing my dad being arrested more than once. And I remember one time it was night, I'd probably say around 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, when the police broke down the door, and I was I was put into a car, and I was moved to an emergency placement. And I was put in that placement with this lovely lady, and my social worker was there, and she didn't really explain too much of what was going on, but I trusted her, and I went round with her, and I stayed with that lady for 2 nights, and then from there I was moved into another short-term placement with a lady named Marion, and I was there for 2 months. And then from there, I was moved and lived with my auntie and my uncle, and I lived with them for just nearly 2 years, and that was lovely because I knew them, they knew me. But my dad, my father, and my mother were also knew where they lived, so they were always coming round unexpected, and they weren't aggressive or violent with my auntie, but they made it difficult for her. Mm-hmm. And my auntie decided it was best, and along with discussions with social services, to move me out of the area, because that was when I lived in London. And then from there, I was moved up here to where I am still living to this day, and that was when I was 9. And I still remember the date. It was the 25th of October.
Right, okay.
2007 is when I moved up here, so I was 9. Mm-hmm. And then from there, basically one of the great moments, I've had run-ins with my family. They don't know where I am, but which is what was a part of my plan. And one of the things that my foster dad did, and I consider the family that I am with now to be my actual family.
Yeah.
I look at my foster mum and I think of her as my mum. I look at my foster dad, I think of my dad. I look at my foster brother and foster brothers and sister, and I think of them, my brothers and sisters. And one of the things they did was they sat me down, and my dad sat me down and he went through my entire file and basically explained my parents' past, my past, why I was taking care. And that was like, it was a real turning point because I wasn't sure of what really was going on at that point.
Yeah.
But when you get sat down and you get told exactly what happened, then it puts into perspective what really goes on.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I thought was normal, because what I'd grown up with wasn't right. And that comes with a lot of difficulties. Like I didn't understand why. And like it took a long time for me to build trust with my family, but I eventually had it, and I am where I am today. They've taught me, they've done a wonderful, wonderful job. I can't sing their praises enough. Like they've taught me basically to accept what's happened to me. Basically that it's not my fault, that I am not to blame for anything. And that, you know, I tried growing up. They encouraged me to try and connect with my family, but they also encouraged me to look to see what's right for me. And I realized that that's not right for me. And I have no connection with my family at the moment. That was my personal choice.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether I chose to connect with them or I didn't, I know that my foster family and also Banya would have supported me in that decision. But now Banya have continued to support me onwards, and like Banya supports from 0 to 18 usually, but with me, I'm now 22 and I'm still living with my foster carers that I was with since I was 9, and we've got an arrangement. And then Banya came back and helped me out again, and now I work for Banya on their social media team. So not only did they give me a home and a family, they've given me a job and a livelihood. So you know, I can't thank Banya enough for what they've done to help me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
I one thing I haven't shared on here is in my younger age, I grew up with domestic violence. However, my mum kept removing us from the situation. So my mum was we had a very, very strong relationship, and whenever there was anything that was going on with a relationship or anything and that wasn't good, she would remove us. So I have that little tiny bit of experience with domestic abuse, but to actually be in there with your mum and dad, that's wow. And look how you've turned out.
Yeah, I honestly, I hope to, like, if I can be even, I just want to make them proud for all the work that they've put in for me.
Yeah. Do you know what? There was one thing you said, and I really liked it. You said that you learnt it wasn't your fault, that you hadn't done anything wrong. And I think that's so important for everybody to know, that foster children, then they never do anything wrong. They are the victims. They're the ones that are going through the hard times, and they're the ones that need the love, the care, the security. And there's this stereotype that foster children are naughty children, that they have to be removed for their own behavior, and it's so not true.
I know.
They just need a loving home.
Exactly. I mean, I remember I was in school one time, and we were just talking about children and going through tough times, and they mentioned foster care, and I said, oh, I'm in foster care. And they looked at me, bearing in mind they were only like 13, 14, and they looked at me and they're like, really, you're in foster care? You don't act like it. And I was like,
I had that too.
You had that too?
Yeah.
And it's just the stigma that, like, if you're in foster care, you have to act a certain way, or like I was always a good kid, I felt.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's not that. It's not that at all.
Did your teachers treat you any differently?
No. Like, no, I mean, some of, like, obviously I have my disabilities, and they were very like accepting of that. They were understanding of that. But I always, growing up, I kind of realized that school was like a safe place for me, away from home.
Yeah.
And I carried that on. So obviously when I was in school, my behavior didn't really show out too much. And that was more when I was at home. But they always accommodated me. My foster parents always supported me. They tried to get me the, like, because I struggle to reach the desk because I'm a short person. They even, like, they brought in like 100 or so chairs that were a little bit higher, that were raised for me, the school, and you know, all that for me. And but they were just so helpful.
Wow.
And like, it's just like the social workers helped, the special needs, all in the meetings, the education plan, I think it's called. Yeah.
You had a really good support system then.
Oh, I did. My foster, no matter what, how much I how many times I played up at home or anything, my foster parents never gave up on me, and they always they always looked for the best for me.
Oh, I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a bit about my story.
Yes.
And then I'm sure there'll be questions that we want to ask each other.
Yeah.
So obviously you've heard my story, but for everybody else's benefit, I'll go through it again. So I was 12 years old, and on the 5th of November, bonfire night, remember the 5th of November, I will never forget that day. I was at my grandmother's house. I stayed at my nan's house most weekends, actually. It was a time that I could get away from my 6 other siblings. There was a lot in our household. So that was my time to regroup. And I woke up on the Sunday morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, to the phone ringing. And my nan was on the phone, and I walked in and she was crying hysterically. When she got off the phone, she sat me down and told me that my mum and dad and my siblings had been in a car accident. One of my other siblings was actually at a friend's house, so there was only 5 children in the car. My mum and dad were not going against the rules. We had a 7-seater, so just to put that there, there was enough room for the kids. And they'd had a head-on car accident. That I got told at 12 years old. I asked if everyone was okay. And my nan told me that my siblings were all fine. Everyone was fine. They were in hospital with cuts and bruises, but they were okay. So I asked if mum and dad were okay. And she repeated, your siblings are fine. They're okay. So I asked again, how's mum and dad? And she just stared at me. So I knew. I don't remember very much of that day. I remember the police coming over and giving a description of my mum and dad. My nan was not able to go and identify her, so they had to give bits of information. And I remember the shock on my nan's face when she learned that my mum had tattoos. So that's one thing that I remember from that day. But I remember going to my friend's house. She was somebody from the church that I went, that I spent a lot of time with, and I went to the church with her. And I remember spending a couple of days there, and the feeling of complete and utter what's the word I'm thinking of? Just not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing when I'm going to go and see my siblings, not knowing how life will ever be. And then I remember, like you, being put into a car and being taken to this really big, beautiful house. And I was very lucky in the sense that I was going to a family that I actually knew of. They were the pastor and his wife of the church. So I was familiar with them. But it was still absolutely terrifying, walking up those steps and them opening the door. I was on my own at this point, so my siblings were still in hospital. And I remember the smiles on their faces. I remember just that little bit of weight being taken off my shoulders, that they were happy to see me. They were happy that I was going to be there. That's kind of the start of how I got into care. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me so far.
And obviously you went into care and you lived with them until you grew up.
I did. I was 16.
You were 16 when you left?
Yeah, because they only fostered until a child was 16. I was actually the second child that they'd fostered. So they weren't, I was brand new, basically. It was a brand new thing for them. But yeah, they were lovely. They were really lovely. And they ended up taking in my siblings, which is very rare. And we all lived there for a few months. And then they got turned upside down again. Me and my siblings have got a different dad. So their dad came and took them. And we didn't have any contact. So just after parents had died, we then got separated. So that just added a whole another lot to the cycle of having to deal with as a 12-year-old. Did you have siblings?
No, personally, I didn't have any siblings myself. I was an only child, which honestly I'm quite thankful for, because I know what I went through, and to think that it happened to someone that was older than me or younger than me as well. I actually found out when I was 16 that I actually do have a half sister.
Right, okay.
But she lives in Ireland, and she was actually, I didn't know about her because she was put up for adoption.
Right.
And she's older than me. I think she was 25 at the time, so she was about 9 years older than me. So she's probably 31 now. And I learned that she also has a child as her own child. So I've also got a half niece as well.
Are you in contact?
No, I'm not in contact. I would like to be in contact with her, but I feel that even now, I feel that contacting her would bring on the rest of the family, and that would just be a bit overwhelming for me. And I've got everything going for me. I've got my house, got my family, I've got my job, and I don't want to mess that up on my own for myself. So I'm going to keep that going personally.
You've got to take care of yourself.
I've got to look after myself at the end of the day, because it's difficult, and that's one of the lessons that I had to learn, because growing up I always want to I like making people happy, I like making people smile, but sometimes nodding your head and say yes, I'll do that to everything is not going to end well for yourself, and you've got to look after yourself sometimes. Sometimes you've got to put yourself first. I'm just looking through.
You have actually gotten a lot of lovely messages, people saying your story is so inspirational and it's amazing, but we do have some questions. Okay. So we have yes, we have pasted them here for us to find out which ones you can answer in this time. So the first one comes from Lizzie, and she asks, how did you feel, Tom, having to move from home to home before you found out your forever family, and how did it affect you?
It was unsettling, I think, is the best way to describe it, because there's like at the start, there's always that feeling of uncertainty, because you meet someone, you living in their home, and it's just that feeling of unease of like, I don't know you, you don't know me, and then you have to keep going through that, and like it's quite unsettling and unnerving, meeting new people that you don't know, saying you're living with these people now, and it's sad because you try and build a bond with them, and then all of a sudden you have to move home and you lose that connection and that bond. And I think that's also added to some of the trust issues, because it's almost like a feeling of rejection, in a way, because like, oh, I look after you, but I'm not looking after you forever. I'm looking after you, but I'm not looking after you forever. And even to this day, like even with my foster family, I've lived here since I was 9, so that's what, 11 years. No, 13 years, sorry. 13 years. And I still ask them, you're not going to kick me out one day, are you? And the answer is no. They're not. They even, no matter what happens, they're not kicking me out. And I've lived them for 13 years, so it still does affect me. But I can trust them, and I've learned to be able to talk to them about it, and they understand my concern. But they'll always keep in contact with me no matter what, even if I move out, and they'll always help me if they can. So I have that reassurance.
That's wonderful. You have also, I don't know if I mentioned this before, you're getting a lot of lovely comments, not just here in Zoom, but on Facebook Live as well.
Aww.
And we have another comment, another question. This one is actually for Rosie. So you mentioned that there's this assumption that foster children are naughty. And what do you think can be done right now to increase awareness, or what can you do to explain to teachers or other people in society, actually, that's not the case? Do you think it's possible, and how do you think we could do that?
I think when you've got this preconceived idea, I think it's hard to change those views. To be honest, I really don't know. I don't know how we could go forward and change the way that people see that. I really don't know. I mean, I know for me, and Tom said the same, that we were just really good kids in school. We listened, we followed instructions. But I think if somebody has that idea in their head, I don't know. I actually don't know how we can change that. It'd be amazing if we could.
Yes. And where do you think that this idea comes from at all? Do you think there are so many examples, or where do you think people get this preconceived notion from?
I think sometimes children have gone through so much, and they've got so much to deal with, and they have got anger, they have got hurt that they're carrying. I mean, Tom went to a couple of different foster homes. I was very lucky to just stay in one. But when you have that much hurt carried around with you, there is that possibility that you may act out, you may present challenging behaviours, and you may find things a struggle. You may decide that you don't want to concentrate in school because the rest of your life is all over the place. But you see, that's where we need foster carers like we have in Banya that say, okay, regardless of what you've gone through, regardless of the things that you're going to present me with, I'm going to love you no matter what. We're going to work through these challenges together. We're going to work through these feelings together. And we need foster carers that are going to be resilient and strong and with a passion for kids, a heart for children. I think at the basis, when you have that as a solid foundation where you love children, I mean, my friend Lizzie, she's been presented with challenges, but because she has a passion for children, she's like, okay, let's work through this together. So they are going to present challenging behaviours, they are, but we just need foster carers to get alongside them, and then when you work together, be good.
Can I make a point on that one, please? I think that as I've grown up, I've noticed that I think the stigma of foster children behaving badly is more like of what's known. For example, you see something on the news that's happened, like someone's committed a crime or something like that, and then they look through the children's history and they tell you about the person's history, and it mentions, oh, they grew up in foster home, they went through several different homes, and then there's that connection. But if you actually, but a foster child, like if you really look at a foster child who sees that, like I grew up, I always saw that, and I always said to myself, no, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to prove, I have a point to prove. So I'm going to work hard. And if you encourage that hard work, then you're going to get a child who goes to university that makes um, life-changing decisions, and gets on really, really, really well. Like there are, if you actually look, there are so many children that have gone into from foster care and gone to university and been very successful.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be promoted more than the negative side of it.
Mm.
And then you see the real truth behind in these kids.
I've been quite shocked recently, actually, Tom, to discover that there's actually quite a few celebrities that's actually been in foster care. Yeah. Bruce Willis being one of them, which I only found out recently. And I mean, he's amazing, and what a top guy as well. He's really lovely. So yeah, you can come out the other side.
Yeah, you've got to put the work in, and you've got to look after them and encourage that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we have another question that asks, what do you consider are the essential qualities a carer should have? And I think this one is a good one for both of you. So Tom, what do you think is the most important characteristics for a foster parent?
The way that I was brought up, I would say there's very good ones. I would say that are a dedication. So either as a commitment to not give up on this person, or a stubbornness that you won't give up on this person, or and honesty. Those are my two. And I would also say a resilience, because even I myself, Rosie, we both said that there have been difficult times for us, and you've got to have that resilience to be able to say, we're going to get through this and keep going. And also one thing that I was taught is firm, consistent boundaries. You say a rule, you make sure they keep to that, and that will get the rest, and be honest with them as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Resilience would definitely be one of my top ones. For me, time. Yes. You can never give too much time to a foster child, to any child, period.
Yeah.
Time is, to me, nothing compares to, I know for me, when my daughter comes in from school, the first thing she wants to do is play a board game as a family. That's her first thing, because that means the most to her. That means a lot to every child. But with children who have so much to digest, so much to deal with, to have somebody come alongside and say, okay, even if you don't want to do anything, I'm going to sit here. If you want to talk to me, that's fine. If you don't want me to say anything and you just want to offload, that's also fine. If you need me to be an advocate for you, that's fine. So for me, that's a big thing. And I think when you mentioned about honesty, I think if you're also going to talk to a child about something and you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you promise a child something, you keep to that. And praise, for me, constantly building that child up. Doesn't matter what that child does. If that child shows kindness, you tell them that you've noticed they've been kind. If they do a great photo, a great picture, you tell them you love the colours that they've used. Praise is amazing. So they're my top ones.
That sounds amazing, but it also, to me, it sounds like just being a good parent. Like it's not really anything different from being a parent.
No.
To just, to being a foster care. It's like a similar step. We do have another question. Do you feel that the voices of foster children are heard? And how do you think that Banya helps to make sure that children feel that their voices are heard and it's not just adults making decisions for them and them being shuffled around? Because I think it can feel like you don't have any power at all in the situation that you're in.
I know this question because, and I have I have a example for this. I was in a meeting, and my auntie and I was being there. My social worker was there. My foster carer was there. Foster parents were there. Sorry. I think it was my SCO was there, and and obviously my social worker was there. And what was they were telling me that my auntie was going back to court to try and get custody of me to go live with her. And they asked me, what do I want? And as you can see, like even the best presented court case that my auntie gave, it was stated, it was written down as in the court proceedings. Thomas has voiced his opinion. He is comfortable where he is, and he wishes to remain there. And that's the last I heard. That's the last I heard of it. And I'm still here, and nothing got changed around. Nothing. So obviously, everything you get listened to. And they are encouraging the best for the child. But if the child wants something different, they will listen to the child, and they'll take that on board too.
Yeah. I don't really have any personal experiences. I wanted to go to live with my nan and granddad when it happened, but because of their age, I wasn't able to. So I don't really have any personal stories about that. I can only go off Banya because that's the only, other than me being in foster care, that's the only thing that I can talk about. And everything surrounds the children. Everything. Yes, we champion and we encourage and we absolutely love the foster carers. But ultimately, the children do come first. And in every conversation I've ever had with Banya, it's how can we help the children with this? How can we support the children with this? One thing as well that's just popped into my mind, which I absolutely loved, and I don't think I actually ever told Banya this. When we were in lockdown, it was amazing. I'm not a foster carer, but as a parent, when Banya was putting up things about, this is what our foster children have done during lockdown. This is a painting that they've done. This is an activity I've done. That's amazing. Yes, we want foster carers, but we also want to turn around and say, look at what the children are doing. This is how amazing they are. This is how we're supporting them. Yes, we support the staff. Yes, we support the foster carers. We support, we love, we encourage, we champion everybody in Banya. But look at what the kids are doing. And I just love that. So Banya's all I have to go on, but I can't say anything negative about it. I say that behind the scenes. So
I'm agreeing with that. Being a Banya child for 13 years, I've had no issues, and they've always encouraged me and like promoted my good work. and championed what I thought and everything.
Yeah.
So we have another question, which is, would you ever consider being a foster carer yourself?
Yes. I did go through foster care channels once before, but it wasn't the right time in the lives of me and my husband at the time. I have approached Rosivo with a couple of questions recently, but they are just questions at the moment. But this is one thing I love about being with Banya as well. I get to find out all these different things. And to say I've been with Banya for a year and a half now, and before I started Banya, I mean, I went through the foster care process about 8 years ago and hadn't thought about fostering ever since. Then get involved in Banya, I mean, and I'm like starting to think, yeah. So I'm not going to say no.
Me, I love helping people, and I love seeing their smiles, and the idea of helping a child that is needs. And I feel that because I've experienced it, and I know what it's like. I've been in their position. I know the challenges that going through. I feel that I would be very a good influence to a child. However, I am I am quite young, and I don't feel that I am ready right now to look at fostering. But that I'm not saying that I wouldn't look at it in the future. I mean, I like I said, I like children. Children are amazing, and I think there are children that need the help, and they need the support, and they need the homes, and they need the families, and they need the people to love them and support them and encourage them and listen to them and understand them. And I feel that I can offer all that, but I don't think that I can offer that at the moment, because obviously I'm only 22 at the moment. That's not to say that you can't be a foster carer at 22. There are young carers. It's just that I am not in a position right now where I feel that I can do it at the moment. Not to say I can't do it in the future.
Lovely. And I just heard from Rosivo that he has some questions for you guys. So Rosivo, do you want to unmute yourself and join us?
Yes. To both of you, you know, you've been through the care system. I think you came into care at an early age. Rosie, I think you said from 12, so that's 5-7 years. Have you got any memories in terms, were you able to kind of put together some memories of when you came into care, and you know, to the time you left, in terms of what are the things you can say, yes, I remember these and I've got these things with me and everything else. And like Rosie, you got a child, you got a husband, you know, things that you are able to share with them. Similarly with Tom, I mean, things that you can look back and say, yeah, I remember this, I went this, I've got this here, and I went to you like football, I went to watch Manchester, whatever it is. Have you got memories you can share with us?
I think if I'm understanding your question right,
yeah,
memories from from being in foster care, things that just stand out to us. Okay, cream eggs. My foster dad would always surprise me once a week with a cream egg. He knew that was my favorite chocolate. And he never ever brought it while my foster mum was in the house, though, because she was very big on health and nutrition. And he always used to have this saying, while the cat's away, the mice can play. So we had chocolate. And it was it was lovely. And that will always stay with me because that meant a lot. That's the thing with foster children, with any children. I don't know why I keep saying foster children, any child. Little details matter so much, and I will never forget the cream eggs. So that's just one of my memories.
Okay, but in terms of anything that is tangible, pictures, images, any things evidencing where you've been, how do you feel about not having such things? if you don't have, yeah.
It does upset me. I don't know if it upsets me now so much, but growing up, it did upset me. I don't have anything from that period of time. Maybe a couple of disposable camera images that I took maybe at youth group sometime. But that was quite hard, because when I see like other like foster carers, I mean, Lizzie, one of her rooms is just family, and all over the walls is her daughter. That's who she is. She's her daughter, her forever mummy. That's, you know, that Lizzie is her forever mummy. And the pride of going into that house and seeing how much she adores that child. I didn't have that. I was shown love, but I didn't have any photos up, and I didn't have any photos taken of me, and I didn't have any memory books or anything to take away. I would really encourage that. I really, really would. It makes me feel happy when I go into Lizzie's house and see the photos. And also, somebody said something to me a couple of days ago. Refrigerator recognition. When like a child does a picture, put it on your fridge. That child has such a sense of achievement, and that what they've done is so special. And I think things like that, little things like that, just putting a picture on a fridge, to, you know, a picture up in a frame, shows you're not a foster child, you're a family member. So that's what I would say about it.
Thank you, Rosie. Tom.
I mean, I think I'm in a similar position to Rosie, in the fact that from foster care, there aren't very many photos that I have with, or that I've taken or had taken of me when I was growing up in foster care. But I do have photos from my early childhood with my birth mum and dad, and I can look at those and I see all smiles and it all looks happy and good. And it just reminds me that, you know, amongst all the bad things that I've experienced and gone through, there were also some good times, and I think I can look at those and remember the good times, and I can separate them. I'm lucky enough to be able to separate them from the bad. So, but I do agree, looking at photos, they're such good memories, and they remind you of where you were and how far you've come to where you are now. And like I think it might have been because I didn't get very many photos, I took up the hobby of photography. And I love taking photos now. I love taking photos of where I go, places I've been, the odd selfie now and then. And it's just making memories to, like, sometimes, like, you can't remember details, but then you have the photos to just save those details for you. And one thing that I always remember about my foster dad, is I always seen him, like, in the garden, building something, fixing something, making something, conservatory, a shed, a room, just taking things apart, putting them together, remodeling, revamping, and even cars and stuff like that. And I think I connect that with him because it makes me, seeing him do that, it makes me know that I can go to him and he can help fix it. And he can, like, improve it or make it better or make it right. And it's the same with my mum, with not so much the practical side, but the support side and the physical side and the emotional side, when she talks to people and helps them and explains stuff to them. It makes me know that I can talk to her about anything and have that support.
Great. So one more thing from me. If you two had an opportunity to go, let's say, on Sky TV or whatever, national TV, what would be the headlines for your story? What would be the headline for your story, Tom?
My story. I don't know. I definitely want it to be related to encouraging people to become foster carers. I don't know, something like because foster care, as I said previously, it can be looked up so negatively sometimes in the media. I can say like the positive side of fostering, the good side of fostering, the good outcomes of fostering, an example of fostering, or something like that, a real example of fostering. And I tell my story and everything, and then I explain to them how well I've come out. I hope.
So a leading question to that statement is that somebody is listening who has considered to become a foster carer, but have heard a lot of things which are negative, and you have the opportunity to encourage them. And they're saying, if Tom says something, I'll definitely go for it. What would you say to them?
Do it. It's going to be amazing. Like, it's just like parenting. You're going to have good moments, you're going to have bad moments, but you're going to come out of it, and you're going to have, if you keep at it, you're going to have something that you are going to be so proud of, and you're going to make great memories along the way.
Awesome. Rosie, your headline.
Kind of wish you'd asked me this earlier when I could think about it. I don't know. See, for me, fostering was, being a foster child was, it was a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was well looked after, and I've still keep in contact with my foster parents. So maybe something. Today's beautiful moments are tomorrow's beautiful memories.
Oh.
Actually,
I had time to think about it, Tom. You put on the spot straight away.
Thank you so much. And your encouragement to someone who is thinking about it, and everything else,
I really enjoyed it.
I mean,
so what's your encouragement to somebody who's thinking about fostering?
Oh, sorry.
do it.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. You'll never regret it, ever. It doesn't matter what challenges you face, you'll never regret it, because you'll help that child and you'll grow as a person as well. So
yeah.
Awesome. I don't know if anyone has a question, to those who are logged in here via Zoom, and to those who are watching via Facebook. Maba, do we still have more questions? If we have anyone in here in the Zoom, please feel free. But I don't know, Maba, if you want to read some good positive comments that I've seen, in the chat there.
We do, but before we do that, we do have one question from Facebook. Chipo would like to know: is there an age limit to being to foster children? So is there a minimum age or a maximum age during which you can foster children? This question just came in, but I think it might be a good idea for you, Rustivo, to answer it.
In terms of you can be, starting from the age of 21 going up. Yes. Yeah, I think that's it. In terms of age limit, as long as you're still, on the go, you know what I mean? But 21 going up would be the age. Yeah.
Excellent. And then we have lovely comments on Zoom and on Facebook. Millie says, amazing stories, Tom and Rosie. Thank you for sharing your experience and what lovely individuals you both are. We have Ephraim saying, fantastic life stories of the power of possible change that can happen in a place of foster care. Verna says, great stories, sharing personal testimonials. Thank you for your openness. And we have also a lot of messages here inside of Zoom. Kahil says, that is a touching story, Thomas. I like where you have happily accepted your present family as your own. They should be proud. From Alec, wow, these stories are very inspiring to see what you have both achieved despite all of the difficulties. So guys, you have received a lot of love. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I know they're very personal and it must be difficult to share them so openly, but we're so grateful that you're doing this, because it really informs people who are interested in becoming foster parents, and they can see the other side of the coin, what it really means for a foster child to have a family.